Hello everyone, this is Colin once again. I'm making a video response to a user here on YouTube named cootycat who has made very few videos, but he's made a couple videos regarding the topic of Islam. This video is about his his trilogy, I believe is what it is. The topic is, who is Allah? This individual is a Christian, which by no means is not a problem, but he's coming at this subject from a very unique perspective. Most people, when they have a misunderstanding of other religions, they usually do not bother to buy the books, the scriptures, as he calls them, of that said religion, and instead just goes on with hater websites and things like this. cootycat is unique, and I give him credit for this, and I applaud you, cootycat. You actually seem to, whether you physically have these books or not, you seem to be well aware of these titles. The one you use a lot in your first video is this one right here, The Life of Muhammad, translated, and it's Ibn Ishaq's Surat, his biography of the Prophet Muhammad. And you use this a number of times in your video. You use the Hadiths, you use the Quran, and so whether you actually have these books physically in your home, I don't know, but at least you are aware of these titles, and I give you credit for that. So I say you come from a unique perspective because I watched your video, and I put a couple notes down, and I found that you were misunderstanding or misquoting of many of these passages. You first start by saying that Allah is the moon god. There is no evidence that Allah was the moon god in pre-Islamic Arabia. This is a misconception, and we can get to that later. You say you'll get to that later. I believe you do, because you have an obsession with this crescent moon symbol, which I don't know if you actually understand the historical concept of that symbol. But when you get to that later, I will get to that later. But for now, I agree with you. Let's stay on the topic. Page 69 of The Life of Muhammad is rather curious. You quote a couple of these passages completely out of context, and I think you misread what it's saying. You say you want to learn more about his mother, so you go to when she is promised, when she's pregnant with Muhammad, and what is said to her. I will quote the whole passage. It says, "It is alleged in popular stories." Let me pause here for a second. In Islamic theology, the Quran and the Sunnah, which comes with the Hadiths, is the two sources that Muslims essentially gain their theology, their way of life. Biographies do exist, but they are no way used in Islamic jurisprudence because they have such passages such as, "It is alleged in popular stories." So if you had read the whole thing in context, you would have realized that the biographies are not solid. The Hadiths are solid because there's a whole science of Hadiths, but you have to be careful when you're reading the biographies. It says again, "It is alleged in popular stories, and only God knows the truth, that Amina di Wahab, the mother of God's apostle, used to say when she was pregnant with God's apostle, that a voice said to her, 'You are,' quote, 'you are pregnant with the Lord of this people, and when he is born, say,' quote, 'I put him in the care of the one from the evil of every envier, then call him Muhammad,' end quote. As she was pregnant with him, she saw a light come forth from her by which she could see the castles of Bursa in Syria. Shortly afterwards, Abdullah, the prophet's father, died while his mother was still pregnant." Now, to take this whole passage and realize that the Ibn Ishaq admits that this is alleged in popular stories, and only God knows the truth, you also have to realize what is being said here. See, you quickly say it's Satan that Muhammad is going to be promised to, which I find kind of humorous, that you quickly jump to Satan. But, you know, it says, "Put him in the care of the one put him in the care of the one from the evil of every envier." So that means people who envy others, this is their evil, because God does speak out against people who envy others. So that is what is being said here, not that he's going to be put in the care of Satan. But let's just pretend for a second that is what's being said. This whole story is an alleged story. It's not even solid according to Ibn Ishaq. But you neglected to mention that in your video. Moving on to page 79 of Ibn Ishaq, you mention that he was encountered by a seer, a soothsayer, and you say, aka an occultist, in other words, an endorsement from Satan. I love how you keep trying to go to Satan where Satan is not even mentioned. it is said that he's with Abu Talib, his uncle, brought him along with the other when he was still a boy. The seer looked at him, and then something claimed his attention. Essentially said, he cried out, "Bring me that boy." When Abu Talib saw his eagerness, he hid him, and the seer began to say, "Woe to you, bring me that boy I saw just now, for by Allah he has a great future." But Abu Talib went away. There were many people who were considered holy men in the pre-Islamic Arabian Peninsula. Whether they, there's many names you can use for them. I won't go as far as to say prophets, but that is one of the words used. Soothsayers, seers, clairvoyants, holy men, clerics, etc., etc., etc. And you have this in all cultures. That is what this guy was. He was not an occultist. He was not a satanic worshiper, especially when he's speaking for the one and true God by saying, by the one and true God, he has a great future. But you neglected to look into that, I'm sure. Then you talk about Bukhari, where it's mentioned by Aisha, and you quickly, what an introduction for Aisha. The first thing that comes out of your mouth is, by the way, Muhammad married her when she was 6 and had sex with her when she was 9. He was his child bride. You quickly just give her that sweeping, introduction, which I find is a tactic that's used by people to alert to their audience. Oh, look, if that makes you feel stingy, then you won't pay attention to anything I have to say in the next 2 minutes. But you mentioned Aisha reporting in the Hadith of al-Bukhari how the revelation began, and you go into you tell the story correctly, but then you throw in some snide remarks like, well, isn't this weird, isn't this bizarre, blah, blah, blah. I don't find anything weird or bizarre about any of these Hadiths, but fair enough. You mentioned Surah 73 and 74, which talks about him being under his blankets. He was frightened because of this experience, and you seem to kind of poke fun of it by the tone of your voice that he was frightened. Page 106 of the biography of Ibn Ishaq. Again, you like to use this, but please, from now on, when you quote this biography, could you please quote in the context? You again mention that it goes into great detail, and you say that after the revelation, after he awoke from his sleep, he says that. And again, this is actually, Tabar mentions that, now none of God's creatures was more hateful to me than a ascetic poet or a man possessed. I could not even look at them. I thought, woe is me, poet or possessed. Never shall the Quraysh say this of me. I will go to the top of the mountain, throw myself down, that I may kill myself and gain rest. So I went forth to do so, and then when I was midway on the mountain, I heard a voice from heaven saying, O Muhammad, thou art the apostle of God, I am Gabriel. I raised my head towards the heaven to see who was speaking, and lo, Gabriel in the form of a man with feet astride in the horizon, saying, O Muhammad, thou art apostle of God, I am Gabriel. I stood gazing at him, and then turned from me for my purpose, etc., etc., etc. So you poke fun at him for this. He was completely stressed out. The psychology of this man was that he lived in a very superstitious time. He did not think of himself anything special. He's a very humble individual. And have someone come to you and say, I'm an angel, you're the prophet, all this responsibility to a community that you pretty much knew was going to hate you because you had your relatives telling you this, who cared about you. Let me ask you a question, cootycat. If someone came to you and said you were the apostle or prophet of God, would you just sit there and go, okay, cool, thanks? If you answer yes, I don't think you're answering honestly. He reacted like a man who was completely afraid, stressed out, shocked out of his mind. Who knows? But it's important to know that Tabari does scatter his little bits and pieces in this section as well. And I mentioned Tabari in other videos. You then mention in Bukhari, it is mentioned that good dreams come from God, bad dreams come from Satan. You say, yeah, he woke up from a sleep, so he must have been dreaming. It's important to note that these dreams have no correlation to what you're quoting in this biography. You're totally just taking that out of context as well. You mentioned the old Venom Fang X argument that in 2 Corinthians 11:14, Satan can appear as an angel of light. Yes, yet if you actually did research in Islam, you would know that Muslims do not believe that Lucifer, Satan, Shaitan, Iblis is an angel. He's actually a jinn, but of course maybe you didn't know that. Be careful when you're crossing theology. And then again, you mention the whole thing about him having intercourse with a 9-year-old, and you say that's so weird. But see, you're not a 7th century Arab, so therefore that was accepted by their culture, etc., etc., etc. And you say some weird statement about how Allah loves darkness because of Surah, I believe, 93, even though you took that out of context as well. So I'll be responding to other videos, and so thank you for watching this. Peace be with you all.